Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching Today I Found Out. In the video today, Havildar Bhanbhagta Gurung and his knife-wielding World War II assault. In March of 2008, the world lost one of the most fearless soldiers to have served during World War II, a man who single-handedly cleared 5 heavily fortified positions with nothing more than a knife, a few grenades, a rock, and a complete disregard for the bullets flying around him the whole time. This is the story of today's video, and this is the story of Bhanbhagta Gurung. Little is known about Bhanbhagta's early life, save from that he was born in the small Nepalese village of Phawlpu in September of 1921. In 1940, at just 18 years of age, Bhanbhagta joined the British Army a few months after World War II began. It was at this point that he was drafted to the 3rd Battalion of the 2nd King Edward VII's own Gurkha Rifles. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Gurkhas, that's the name that's traditionally given to soldiers recruited into the British or Indian military from Nepal. The word Gurkha is taken from an area once known as the Gurkha Kingdom, which was folded into and became a part of Nepal around the turn of the 20th century. The Gurkhas were originally formed after British soldiers fighting in Nepal were simultaneously impressed and terrified by the soldiers they encountered during the Anglo-Nepalese War of 1814. After the war ended in 1816, the British, spying an opportunity to bolster their ranks, offered these fearless Nepalese soldiers a chance to volunteer to serve in the British Army, referring to them collectively as Gurkhas, a name that is still used today, regardless of which area of Nepal a given soldier happens to hail from. Alright, so back to Bhanbhagta. Although he joined the army in 1940, he didn't get his first taste of combat until 1943, when he fought alongside several thousand other men behind enemy lines in Burma. During this time, Bhanbhagta was promoted from rifleman to the rank of naik, the equivalent of a corporal. However, he would later be demoted back to rifleman in 1944 when his commanding officer told him to patrol the wrong area, and then he refused to admit that he'd made a mistake, instead putting the blame on Bhanbhagta. Bhanbhagta's shining moment, it would come a year later, on March the 5th, when he single-handedly took out 5 entrenched Japanese positions under heavy fire and out of ammunition for his gun, doing his best impression of Lance Corporal James Welch, who once captured 4 German armed soldiers with an empty gun. Bhanbhagta was part of a platoon of men that had been given the singular goal of taking a hill colloquially known as Snowdon East. The hill was a strategic foothold that had been overrun by the Japanese, who, in the process, killed about half of the Gurkha company after the Gurkhas had run out of ammunition and been forced to fight their way through the enemy lines with nothing but knives. Bhanbhagta's platoon was told to take the hill back regardless of cost. Bhanbhagta apparently took this command quite literally. While Bhanbhagta and his men were sneaking up on the position, they were spotted and initially pinned down by machine gun and mortar fire. Because of their extreme close proximity to the enemy troops, support artillery from their own side simply wasn't possible. They were simply stuck, and while all of this was happening, an enemy sniper from a tree approximately 75 meters to the south began picking off Bhanbhagta's comrades one by one. Realizing that he couldn't get a clean shot if he was lying down, Bhanbhagta stood up while still being shot at from several enemy positions and managed to take out the sniper. Bhanbhagta then signaled to his men to follow him as he sprinted up the hill in the face of the enemy fire that was raining down on them. Several Gurkhas were unfortunately killed in the dash, and then they were once again pinned down. Apparently not one to just sit around while being shot at, Bhanbhagta sprinted the remaining 20 meters or so to the nearest enemy trench and quickly dispatched those inside with a couple of well-thrown grenades. He then ran towards a second enemy position, killing the armed soldiers inside with his bayonet. Bhanbhagta then rushed 2 other positions, taking them out with his now trademark combo of grenades and furious rifle stabs. All of this was happening while Bhanbhagta was, to quote, being subjected to almost continuous and point-blank machine gun fire, particularly from a 5th position slightly further up the hill. Bhanbhagta then headed towards that final position, a small bunker where a machine gunner was raining down heavy fire and doing a boatload of damage to the Gurkhas. Nevertheless, Bhanbhagta managed to get on top of the roof of the bunker without being shot, and then, being out of explosive grenades, hurled 2 smoke grenades into the opening from which the machine gun was firing. When the 2 Japanese soldiers emerged, Bhanbhagta pounced on them with a machete, dispatching them both. He then ran into the machine gun nest, having to kill the machine gunner with a rock instead of his knife because of the extreme close quarters. Bhanbhagta and his men then took possession of the machine gun and managed to hold the position from the counterattack by the enemy soldiers, proving that you absolutely do not want to mess with a Gurkha. Indeed, the Gurkhas are feared and respected in equal measures for precisely the reason Bhanbhagta is the subject of this video. They are utterly fearless in combat. For instance, during World War I, despite their relatively small numbers, thousands of Gurkhas earned medals for gallantry, and there were dozens of documented stories of Gurkha soldiers encountering seemingly hopeless odds and still coming out on top. Even outside of war, for example, there's Vishnu Shrestha, a retired Gurkha who fought against 40 armed robbers and won. Next up, we have Taitex Flamaka, a former Gurkha who punched a mugger to the ground whilst that mugger's own knife was lodged inside the man's arm. Then there's the story of Havildar Gurung, who, according to the July 27, 1945 edition of the London Gazette, was manning the most forward position of his platoon, which bore the brunt of an attack by at least 200 of the Japanese enemy. Twice he hurled back grenades which had fallen on his trench, but the third exploded in his right hand, blowing off his fingers, shattering his arm, and severely wounding him in the face, body, and right leg. His two comrades were also badly wounded, but the rifleman, now alone and disregarding his wounds, loaded and fired his rifle with his left hand for 4 hours, calmly waiting for each attack, which he met with fire at point-blank range. Afterwards, when the casualties were counted, it is reported that there were 31 dead Japanese around his position, which he had killed with only one arm. Despite losing the use of his right hand and right eye during that battle, among other injuries, Gurung lived until December of 2010, dying at the age of 92. Apparently, it took death a while to work up the courage to pay Gurung a visit. Perhaps, though, the thing that sums up the Gurkhas best is this quote from Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw. "If a man says he is not afraid of dying, he is either lying or is a Gurkha." After World War II, Bhanbhagta's superiors tried and failed to convince him to continue serving. As it turns out, Bhanbhagta had an elderly mother and young family to support, and he wanted to go home to be with them. Before he left the army, though, Bhanbhagta was re-promoted to his previous rank when it emerged that his previous indiscretion wasn't actually his fault. He was also given the honorary rank of sergeant. He died on March 1st, 2008, at the age of 86. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and do not forget to subscribe for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also, I'd like to take this moment to thank our patrons on Patreon. If you're interested in helping us out in making these daily videos, please do head over to the Patreon link that you'll find in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching.